nattering away.
Okay, that's the cue. Okay,
Yeah.
so hi everyone. Welcome to WAO Spotlight, Women's Aid Organization Spotlight session, focusing on women in leadership. I am Isma Hussain, WAO Ambassador, and we are very excited today to have our very own past president and past executive director, Ivy Josiah. Hi, Ivy. Welcome to the session, and thank you so much for taking time off your very busy schedule to be with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a lovely surprise.
Well, let's jump straight into it. You are a proud feminist. Please share with us your journey.
My journey, or when do you want me to start? Where do you want me to start? Well, I suppose it's the neighborhood, right? I was born in Brickfields. I grew up in Brickfields. My mother was very involved with the community. She would always be helping people. And, growing up, and I've written about it, I used to hear the neighbor's husband beating her up and she's crying in the middle of the night. And my mother would go to the kitchen and take pots and pans and just stop, dropping them or opening the door and going, hey, what's happening? What's happening? So kind of like stopping the battering, So I was kind of used to this. Men beat their wives, neighbors kind of get involved or do not get involved. So my journey actually began there. But on a personal basis too, I was brought up as like a good Ceylonese Tamil girl, right? And all my life, I knew that I was going to get married off. My mother always said, okay, that house, we're buying it for you because it's for your dowry. And I actually, during my university days, there were men who will come to the house with their mothers or their parents, and I had to sit there and serve them coffee and tea all the time thinking, okay, I'm going to go through this only to say no. I knew I was going to say no because I wanted to fall in love because I was a victim survivor of mills and wounds, right? Anyway, so all of those questions about, is my destiny to be married, to have children? Do I have to buy a husband because I was going to give a huge big dowry? That's a Ceylonese way. I mean, no longer, but it's still practiced. So all those questions, I took it with me. And I really think those questions were answered when the first day I entered. And I'm going to get very sentimental about this. The first day I entered the refuge many years ago in 1980, when I entered the refuge, which is, somewhere, another place completely, my first meeting, and met Simran Gill, the first social worker who incidentally designed that T-shirt you're wearing. Do Google her name, Simran Gill. She's like a very famous artist. So when I entered that space, everybody was chatting, talking over each other. And, and there was this one question like, why do men beat women? And Simran Gill was the one person who said it's because they have the power. It's to do with the patriarchy. And then I knew I was home. I understood it's all to do with power and the power that men had or society had or given it to men and the power that's been taken away from women. So yeah, the journey began from childhood, and I think things started sinking in that, yes, I am a feminist and I'm proud of it. It all happened actually at that first meeting in Women's Aid Organization shelter. We went to the shelter, right? And at that time, we used to have the women in the shelter also join in our discussions. We would have translators and so on. And of course, I was also put on record my thanks to Ambika Srinivasan, who picked me up and drove me to the shelter because she's a lawyer, right? And at that time, Women's Aid Organization was looking for lawyers to help out or anyone who wanted to volunteer. So we went for our first meeting, and I remember driving back. As she was driving back, we could not stop talking, about everything. What does this mean? We are feminists. Do we have to shave? Do we have to stop shaving our underarms? Because we saw a number of women with, with hair underneath. And I mean, it was like very shallow conversation, but at the same time, curious questions also, right? But we loved it. We loved this world called feminism.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So how did you go from being moved and inspired to taking leadership roles?
Well, it's the convent book in Anas, right? So already in the convent, I was I'm a bossy person. Yeah. I was already, you know, the Ambika was the head girl. I was the vice head girl. So it was a partnership we are used to, right? And already in school, in secondary school, I was already showing leadership, you know, tendencies and qualities, organizing. I remember organizing my first cleanliness campaign, you know, trying to get everyone to pick up rubbish and all of that. So I think the leadership came from the school. And then when you got involved with WAO, I started by just helping to organize jumble sales, started raising money, getting involved with just about everything. I was a teacher, right, at that time. So I would teach until about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. I can't remember now. Go home, have lunch, jump into a taxi because it took me a long time before I could get my driver's license, and go straight to the shelter, and I started volunteering there. So this wanting to organize, wanting to make a difference, I think that's how I started developing my leadership skills. It wasn't an easy journey. I learned also to be a good leader, because I was not necessarily a good leader. I have many stories to share where I was told, and I thank God I had staff in WAO. Can I tell you the story? So in WAO, I remember being the executive director. I told you I won't stop talking, right? So I remember in Women's Aid Organization was when I was the executive director. First, I was president for 4 years, and I was very clear that I should only hold that position for a short while. You shouldn't be like sitting there and hogging that space forever, right? And so change in leadership was very important for me. As the executive director, which is, you know, I was doing quite well. I thought I was so good, and I was so proud of myself. And then one day a staff took me out for a drink, and I said, and just simply told me, "You're a bully. You are bullying people." I said, "What do you mean? Everybody loves me. I'm so good." And it was really a very shameful day for me. But thank goodness I had enough resources and a staff who was not telling that to me in an accusing manner, but in a kind manner, to say, "You got to change your leadership ways, because that's not the way you were. Why have you become a bully?" So I think for me, leadership is also learning to receive negative feedback, because one can get quite cushy and quite comfortable. "Oh, I'm here. I cannot be shaken." I mean, we all know people like this, right? I know everything, but to be vulnerable, I think being vulnerable is important. So anyway, I remember at that time I had stopped smoking, and I really wanted a cigarette so badly. And the very next day, I went into the office, talked to the women who I was bullying, asked for their forgiveness, and changed my whole strategy. Just not strategy, just changed my behavior, really. So it's a learning journey. I'm still learning how to be a good leader, but I know I am a leader, right? I initiate and I lead. So it's not. You learn it.
It's a misconception that vulnerability,
yes.
Vulnerability as a leader is a weakness, but it's actually a strength, and it is something not easy to do. So it's inspiring that you were able to do that, especially in a more Asian context when you're supposed to be like this big, strong figure, right? But do you think women are more able to be more vulnerable as leaders?
Well, the way our gender has been programmed. I mean, as children, as a young girl, a girl child, and just being female, you're already encouraged to show your feelings, right? Because you can show your feelings, and you're a girl. It can be very negative and positive, right? But you're allowed that space to show your feelings, unlike men, because men really miss out on that they show their feelings and they're vulnerable. "Oh, you're sissies." I mean, this is, feminism is not about freeing women, it's also about freeing men from these very rigid roles, right? So I think you're right. For me, vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is allowing a space in your heart, allowing a space in your mind to love, to accept, and to say, "I'm going to take a risk," And you're right. Women also, I think we talked about this, how women don't like taking risks, but the positive side of that is, because we don't like taking risks, I dare say, I think there is a survey out there, and I'd love to be proven wrong. Women are less corrupt because they will not, send $6 zillions and put it in your own bank account and what have you, because the risk is there. We are programmed, or we are engendered, we are brought up to always think of your reputation, your family, what will it do to your family, your husband, your children, your mother, father. So all of that can be very positive too, but also can be obstacles, right? So I'm all for vulnerability. It's fine, because when I'm vulnerable, I'm stronger too. We are stronger.
That relates to our next question, right? Maybe because of this risk-averse attitude, because in general, women are brought up to be perfect, and men are encouraged to take risks. So because of that, maybe we are less likely to take leadership roles in the first place, so we don't even have the opportunity to be corrupt because we are not even in the position to make that decision. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Because if we put our hands up and say, I want to be a leader, oh, she is ambitious, isn't she? She's so aggressive, right? It's always, but you have to be quiet, do the quiet leadership, work behind a man. Who's this man? Who's this woman behind the man? Oh, I'm sick of all of that. And time again, we have demonstrated that women are natural leaders, because we are. We run the home, okay, not necessarily because we want to, but because we have to. We are taking care of the children, their education, driving around. I mean, the multiple roles that a woman has, especially if she is a wife and a mother, and also working, outside of the house. So I think it's not that I think we realize we are good leaders, but because society doesn't accept it, and it is, again, I rely on data and surveys, and an actual survey and research shows that when the family doesn't support a woman, whether it's the parents and family or the partner or the husband, when they don't support a woman, she's not going to do very well. Because we are brought up to also say, we need to get the approval, and we want to make sure that everybody is happy, right? I mean, this can be worked negatively and positively. So I think it's not that we don't have leadership qualities. The space culturally, institutionally doesn't allow. And that is why we have affirmative action. And that is why we need to push women up to say, there is a position open, but we'll give it to women first. And people are going to say, but that's unfair, Ivy. It's not unfair. It's affirmative action, people. We know all about affirmative action. A disadvantaged group, i.e. women. It could be a disadvantaged group of women who are in the rural area, or maybe not, aren't speaking English. That group is given a boost and say, this position is for you. We're going to create spaces. And we're going to give you training too. But we are natural leaders because we are used to what's the word for it? What am I looking for? Multitasking. Yeah. It's the environment, society that doesn't allow us. We ourselves, we know deep down below our belly button, we are going to be good.
Well, speaking of multitasking and having multiple roles, you can do it all. The loaded statement that many of us have been growing up with, that you can have a career, you can have kids, you can take care of the household, you can do everything else in between, right? So I think, especially in this generation, women are discovering that this is a myth and a lie, because trying to do it all can lead to burnout, and it's just too much for one person to handle. So what's your take on that?
Well, I completely agree. And I also naively thought in my 20s and 30s, I remember sitting in the university campuses. I went to University of Malaya, and my friend Maniha and I and Baldesh and all my little group of friends who are still friends today used to say, we're going to do it all. We're going to have this amazing career, and we're going to come back home, and we're going to cook a splendid meal and welcome our husbands in our very sexy outfits, It was actually, we all read this book by Shirley Conrad, where I think we can do it. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was about how women can be, it was called the Superwoman. So we're going to be superwomen. And then there was a reality check, right? We started working. Some of us got married. We came back home tired after work. Really, we don't want to cook. And there he is, not helping in the kitchen. And that's when, like, wait a minute, something is wrong with this. So I went through that myth, believing in that myth. I went through it thinking that I can do it all, or weak, or rather, worse still, more sinister, Isma, is thinking that we must do it all. That's more sinister. Yeah, we should be doing this. What's wrong with you? We can do it all. We cannot be vulnerable. We cannot say, hey, hello, I really don't feel like cooking. Can somebody help me with the housework? Can somebody help me mothering and parenting? That's also important. The co-parenting is also important. So I don't think we can do it all. We are probably doing it all and doing it very well, but somewhere inside here, I think we are really damaging our body, our mental state, and don't tell me, oh, just go and do some yoga, please. We need to share responsibilities, and some of the responsibilities can be burdens too, even carrying duties, right? I remember once there was a situation where one of my colleagues, not in WAO, when I was on a board member for another organization, she was always taking time off to look after her mother, the mother-in-law here. And, we all often ask, how come she's the only one taking time off? Why isn't her husband also taking time off? And this kind of caring duties always falls on the daughter-in-law, the daughter. And it was just so unfair. A daughter would take care of an ailing mother, and then when she passes away, she doesn't inherit. It's a male relatives and a male, I was going to say male brothers, her brothers and her male relatives who inherit. Injustice, that's what a feminist is all about. You recognize injustice, but you don't recognize in the injustice and go, what to do. That's the way society is. You do something about it, and you damn well, oh, sorry, can't curse. You damn well do something about it. Or I can cut off later. Yeah. Take action, people. Take action.
We can do something on like an individual capacity, but what do you think should happen culturally and at a societal level, at a corporate level even? What would you like to see?
I think at a society level, we have to change the culture, right? The way we do things, and we need to set, first of all, we need to set very strong examples of women's leadership and men who are leading, who are also recognizing women's leadership and women's participation in the workplace, women's participation in the community, in politics, in parliament. It's really very sad. It's just dominated by men still. So we have to change the institutions. We have to change the culture of the institutions. And this can't happen overnight. And we need to put things in place. I mean, we started off by like a sexual harassment, anti-sexual harassment policy in the workplace, right? But it's more than just an anti-sexual harassment policy. It has to do with everyday sexism too. That culture has to change. So we have to tackle it at every level, at a personal level, the family level, society, institutions, and we need to have laws and policies in place because, nobody likes to give up power, I mean, that's why we have anti-bullying policies even in many, many organizations, right? We need to recognize it and we need to have a grievance policy. So people have to know that this behavior is not accepted. But more than anything else, we had the greatest triumph of all. I mean, it was really amazing that time in 2000 when we changed the highest law in the country to recognize gender equality as being an aspiration. I mean, that the Constitution recognized, Article 8 recognized gender equality as a right. But of course, we know that didn't come easy. And after subsequently, all the other terrible provisions of the Constitution is taking so long, right? Because of the culture, because of the patriarchy, because of the misogyny. But the fact that it's enshrined in the Constitution, which is again another interesting story, you got to bring in Meera Samandar to talk about that, and how we changed that Constitution, the Article 8 of that. So yeah, it's a lot of work at every level. But let's start on a personal basis, right? When you see somebody making a stupid sexist joke, don't laugh along. Just say, hey, come on, guys. That is not on. We tend to tolerate these sense of humor. Sometimes you have to be unpopular, can? I've just learned to sort of go like, come on, guys, come on. Not like last time, blurt out and be angry. Anger is very good when you go on protests, but in conversations over a dinner table, be chill, but be very firm.
I agree. When I give talks to college students, university students, and I remind them that there's actually, it is a huge problem, because in my presentation, I always make them realize how big gender equality, or how big of an issue it is. And they often feel down, but I'm like, hey guys, you can do something about it on a daily basis. There are always opportunities, is whether you see it or not, whether you take advantage of it or not, right? So you just outline the importance of feminism in order to bring change, important change. But let's face it, feminism have become a dirty word. Liberalism has become a dirty word. So what do you think about that?
I mean, it's just the good old press, right? The good old media that exaggerates everything, because we go look at the definition of being a liberal. It's a person who recognizes there's social injustice and corrects it. If I'm saying I'm liberal, they go, oh my God, what's wrong with you? If I say I'm a person who recognizes social injustice and I want to do something to change it, then you say, yeah, I agree with you. But guess what? That is the definition of a liberal. I'm a person who recognizes that women are not empowered or have less power, and that the patriarchy is very strong. And I want to correct that. And that's a feminist, right? So if we give that long sentence, everybody will agree with you. But if you say I'm a feminist or I'm a liberal, so it's really this bad press. I think it's this bad press. It's press that's managed by mainstream media. About 50 years ago, there was a protest in America at a beauty contest. There was a beauty pageant. And so the women gathered there and they brought broomsticks, mops, bras, kitchen, not knives, it was not that violent, but kitchen utensils, to show the elements and tools that oppresses us. Housework's oppressive, the bra is oppressive, you've got to be in a particular body shape. And ever since after that, women burn their bras, feminists burn their bras. Well, I wish we could burn our bra, but it does hurt when you're not wearing a bra. Anyway, the point is, it's just bad press. It's just bad press. And mind you, the early years of Women's Aid, we didn't use out the word feminism so easily, We did not use it. And I remember this. We were like, okay, better not say feminist. And they're going to say we're crazy, we're man-haters. We were very careful about not using the word feminist. I can call it a strategy, or I can call it plain cowardice. But it was like reading the room and realizing that maybe this word is not going to go down too well. It was only later in the 2000 from 2000 onwards, we started using the word feminism in a more positive way. So we were quite strategic about, we just believe in women's rights, or we are activists, we are advocates, but we didn't use the word feminism in our annual report. It only came much later, right? And I've forgotten what's the question. I told you, stop me from talking.
Don't want to talk. I'm talking because what you have is so interesting. But you brought on quite an important point. Could it be that feminism was not used as easily before because of the backlash that was anticipated? And now there's still misconception, but there's also a lot of acceptance or understanding about what it truly means.
True,
Could it
that's
be?
right. And the word liberal and feminism have become dirty words. Actually, liberal as in terms of progressive Islam or progressive religious ideas. If you're a liberal, that means you must be hateful and you're God, you hate God, because it's also used in terms of if you're a liberal, that means you're not religious. No, feminists and liberals can be religious too. That's a choice that we can make. Or you cannot believe, maybe you don't even believe in God. That's a choice too. So it's not that we are godless, braless women running around. Oh, I like that, godless and braless. Yes. We are not. I'm deeply religious. I'm really do love being spiritual. And I don't think I'm spiritual enough, but I aspire to be. Yeah, so it's bad press. It's just bad press. Don't want to say feminism, lah. Better not say that, Ivy, because it's very negative, So sometimes you need to open doors, you need to perhaps be more careful with the words. But when you're sitting and negotiating, I'm not going to say, Minister, I really think you need to give equal citizenship to mothers. It's been 20 years, 30 years, we've been waiting. Why are you making it difficult for mothers? But it's so easy for fathers. And I won't say as a feminist, no, I won't. I'll just say it is it's a justice issue, right? But I'm there because I'm a feminist. Feminism feeds my soul, my mind, my body, it feeds my soul. But I'm not going to sit there and go, I'm a feminist and therefore give it to, I'm going to talk about justice. The word justice should be used more often because everybody believes in justice, right? Or so they should.
Well, I didn't want to mention anything about what's happening in the world today. Apparently, it depends on your perception. So, talking about perception, you have no qualms talking about the fact that you have never been married. So, what about society's view on marriage and the expectation that all girls or all women should be married ultimately at one point, and the man should be the leader of the family unit?
The man of the house, right? That's a myth, right? The man of the house, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, my personal life was such that I was supposed to get married. I was, in fact, even engaged to be married. All of that. So at some point, I decided that I'm going to make a choice here, and said, being single, or even the word single is so negative, being on my own, being not married, it's a choice that I can make, right? It's not because I'm bitter and I hate men. So I'm always proud of saying that I'm not married and I'm unmarried and I'm not ashamed of it. The other thing that I'm also always state is I remember people telling me, hey, you don't mind telling your age on Facebook. So when I was about 40 years old, I always put my age down. They're like, why you don't mind saying you're 40 years old? It's terrible, right? An older woman is like misery for people. I mean, look at all the beauty products and skin products that are out there just to make you look younger. It's like as if if you look older and as you old, as you have gray hair, it's somehow like something is wrong with you. I mean, it's the most natural thing. It's natural to grow older and to have wrinkles and white hair. So being old, being unmarried, being a feminist, boy, oh boy, what's wrong with you, Ivy Josiah? But you know what? I keep very good company, right? I mean, one of the things I love about being in Malaysia, I mean, not that I've lived overseas, but one thing I like about society in Southeast Asia or in our Asian culture is that there's a lot of, like at a dinner table or a party, there'll be not everybody's couple. When in the Western world, I know sometimes people agonize, must be boy, girl, kind of thing, and for heaven's sakes, we all know it's no longer boy, girl. I like living in our society where, there are a lot of single women and men, and we mingle. And of course, it's very city-like. So anyway, I don't mind it. If you think that I'm pathetic and you think that I'm kind of sad, actually, no, I'm having a time of my life. And then my married friends were saying, hey, I really wish I was late with you. And my only regret, and I want to be vulnerable with WAO and the members and the volunteers and friends of WAO. I think my only regret has been, I wish I had, had a child, a daughter or a son. That's the only thing. But then again, I find that a lot of I have sort of like adopted or being, a godmother to my nieces and nephews too. If that's any regret that I have, But again, please don't think that is like, oh, you must have a child. No, 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 no. That if I have any regrets, it's like, I should have had, I could have had, but I don't know. I'm glad maybe the universe has saved, maybe I wouldn't be a good mother. I could be a great friend and godmother and a great auntie, but may not be a great patient mother, right? Who's to know? We will never know now.
This is why I enjoy talking to you, because I see a lot of strength in you when you don't care about going against the grain, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I consider myself as very unconventional, but sometimes I still find myself caring about what people think, what would they say, I should do this, I should do that. So I'm just curious for you personally, like where do you find that strength or that ability to like, you know what, I don't care what you expect of me, I'm gonna be me.
Yeah, but those doubts go through my head too. Of course, those doubts go through my head. I'm saying, oh, what will people say or whatever. I can't think the last time and I thought, what will people say? But I do remember, it's not like I do care what people have to say. I would like to have a good opinion of people. I don't like it when people have a negative opinion or misinterpret me, when actually I'm trying to help. I don't know, Isma. I think maybe it comes from knowing yourself, being confident of who you are. Yeah, I think knowing who you are, knowing where your strengths are, where your vulnerabilities are, loving myself. I know it sounds really, oh my God, how, hippie of you to say love yourself. I think loving yourself is very important. Loving your body is important, right? I really, really, one of my pet hates is like, oh my God, look at me, I put on weight. I say that. I'm not saying I don't say that. I say that, but I check myself when I see other people, and I don't like to make comments about body. Oh, she's put on so much weight, huh? Or she's looking so much older now. We never say that about men, That is really freakish and freaking and bloody, that the way we demand women to be perfect. God knows, oh my God. I was recently in a WhatsApp group, and there's a photograph of a woman who had a makeup. Everyone was going, oh my God, you look so wonderful. You're glowing. You're wondering. I go, hey, hello. It's called, what's the thing when you airbrush, airbrushing.
Photoshop.
Airbrushing, yeah. This constant demand that we have to be perfect, right? And flawless.
Mm-hmm.
It's my pet hate right now. Why aren't you
Right.
dyeing your hair, Ivy? Yeah, I said, no, I don't want to. I didn't dye my hair with sort of brush some black. Then I said, hey, stop it, throw it away. You want to be a feminist? Live your truth. Stop,
Right.
But it doesn't mean I don't like makeup. And by the way, people, I do like makeup. I do like, going and have my blown. I do like prettying myself or looking, whatever. I do enjoy that. And my jewelry. Love my jewelry, yes.
Well, speaking of society and their expectations and just the way things are, there seems to be a never-ending list of issues to fight.
Yeah.
Types of women's rights. So how do you and other female leaders find the strength to persevere? Because sometimes the fight takes on like a few decades, right?
Yeah. We are almost there in getting equal citizenship, right? And we started this work almost 30 years ago, right? Way, way, way back when, when we realized that women cannot confer citizenship. You had to come back to Malaysia and give birth here. And it was so easy with men. I think it's to do with solidarity. It's got to do with the movement. For me, I'm a great believer in the women's movement. And it was one thing that I feel that we should not neglect. And I think right now it's really important for us to keep building the women's movement, solidarity among women, among the women's groups. I think the Joint Action Group Against Gender Equality is a testimony to our movement, and there should be more, and it must strengthen it. So I think it's important for us to recognize there are many, many things that are, problematic out there, but we need to take joy in this, taking it step by step. You can't give up. I mean, you cannot, it's in all your conscience, you cannot give up. Women must walk an extra mile. I mean, that's and one person's struggle, one person's injustice is, and winning that is fighting for that is for all women. So I think I always had this, and I'm going to say we in the women's groups, I mean, we waited for a good 11 years before the Domestic Violence Act came into fruition. And now with the citizenship, equal citizenship, it's about 30 years. People forget it's 30 years, and they're handing it out as if it's Christmas and be grateful for it. No, we should have got it 30 years ago. So anyway, I guess I can't give up, and we can't give up, because for me, that is morally wrong. Why should I give up? I shouldn't give up. Giving up means I'm giving up on myself, right? And why would you want to give up on yourself? So the personal is the political. And what joy it is when we win these small wins, right? So yeah, you cannot give up. Movement building is important. For me, that's very important as members of WAO. I think building the WAO membership, volunteerism, and knowing that when something, if and when something terrible happens to any woman, or they decide not to give us our rights, we should be able to go down to Parliament or go down on the streets or be at home or wherever out in the neighborhood and be able to protest, to come together to protest. I think that's very important. And throughout my entire advocacy life, my activist life, I've seen us organizing ourselves, whether it's freeing a human rights defender or fighting for electoral reform. Women's Aid Organization was very involved in the electoral reform, also because we had two amazing women leaders in Bersih, right? So yeah, that's all. I don't have anything more profound to say. We cannot give up, because it is dishonest to give up.
Well,
it's
can you share, because you share with us the fight, but can you share with us the organizations that you're part of? Because I think you mentioned that you're a member of 5 boards right now.
Yeah, I know. Suddenly this year, I'm like, how did this happen? It's all the convent Bukinanas, training, you have to volunteer, we have to volunteer. So I sit on the board of APWLD, which is one of the oldest regional organizations for women, which was started in the 80s, and the headquarters or the secretariat is in Chiang Mai. And WAO is a member of women's of APWLD. So I sit on their board. And then I sit on 5 Arts Center. I'm also we don't call it a board, it's a collective. And I do work and volunteer work there. I produce plays or, and do work around the arts. And also we, in fact, have organized the arts groups to come together, and we call ourselves Reform. Are you ready for this? Reform Arts C. Got it? Reform Arts C. I know, so clever. And then I started volunteering, and I'm a trustee on the Rose Foundation, which is a foundation looking at cervical cancer, encouraging women to do self-testing. So I sit on their board. And then more recently, I became a trustee or a director of the foundation of the International Women's Development Agency based in Australia, but they wanted more people of diverse women from the region to be on their board. So I sit on their board. It's an Australian board, and then the last one which I recently became, I'm very, very proud of it, and I want to share with you. This is the Urgent Action Fund Asia and the Pacific, which is basically a fund that gives out money when women, human rights defenders, are in crisis, when you may have to help somebody to get out of a country or go to court or within their own country. to help them. I mean, I won't say actually it's escape. Sometimes it's escape, but most of the time the money is also going towards building the human rights defenders support in the country. She may be going through a court case, or she may be, she's jailed. So it's called Urgent Action Fund, and I just became the co-chair of that fund. It's all my volunteer work. I'm having a serious think as to, I think I may have to drop a couple of the positions, because I need more. I cannot split myself thin, because you know what, Isma, I like resting in the afternoons. I like my nap afternoons.
You also no longer buy into you can do it all, right?
No,
you can say
that's it. I'm glad you're bringing it back to that. Yeah, you're right. I do like my own leisure time. I love watching Netflix, and I love playing games and board games and what have you. I like having a good time still. Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the organizations would be sorry to see you leave. But one thing that you mentioned that was quite interesting was Five Arts Center. And you've also called yourself a storyteller. So I'm really intrigued about that. What is the connection between the arts in general and storytelling in particular when it comes to leadership?
Yeah, I'll answer the first question, because by being involved in Five Arts Center, I started in the 80s. We are 40 years old. This next year, we are 40 years old. So I joined Five Arts Center around about when it was like 5 years old. But I began with Five Arts Center by being a dancer with Marion de Cruz and dancers. So I began as a dancer, and then I became a member of Five Arts, and I acted a couple of times, and I started producing plays. So for me, the storytelling came out of just watching the performances, whether it is even when we perform dance and movement, we tell stories during that time. So telling stories in a creative way did help me. The arts and my involvement with the arts helped me to be creative in my storytelling. That, telling a story was bringing the issue of domestic violence or rape or any form of discrimination at a very personal level, at a very individual level, right? So that was important. And you don't talk in very, intellectual ways. And being involved in the arts also, because as a dancer, as a former actor, but I still consider myself a dancer, I learned from Marion about the importance of discipline. I mean, I can be very ill-disciplined. I'm so terrible. I can procrastinate, but going for rehearsals, being on time, and all of that gave me a kind of a discipline too. And I just love the people in the arts. I mean, look at them. Look at us, rather, not them. Look at us. We are creating a performance. We are singing songs. We are creating paintings or installations that speak to us in so many other ways, right? It's just not words. It's visual. It is, you can feel it. You can feel the music. So yeah, for me, I think the arts does help to amplify human rights violations and human rights situations. And we in the human rights world should also see the arts as protect the arts, especially when it comes to freedom of expression. I'm involved right now in a Southeast Asian research looking at censorship. You know how we censorship films, censorship plays, we censor exhibitions, and paintings are taken down and burnt and thrown away. We need to also include them as artists, as human rights defenders too. So I hope I've answered the question. So for me, it's seamless. You need the arts needs us. It's all, and I always, because I think as a young person, I've always enjoyed the arts, especially dancing, right? I wanted to be a dancer, but somehow my parents thought that I couldn't. They made me learn the violin and not Bharatanatyam. Yeah, should have sent me to.
It's okay. You're a dancer in the world of feminism. You're a star in our books.
Gosh, Lola. Another.
Ivy, Or not. We are at our last question. We made it on time.
Okay, there you go.
So, unless you take an hour to answer this, and I can't do anything about that. But where do you think?
Challenge taken, yes.
Where do you think Malaysia is in terms of female representation in leadership roles?
Yeah, very poor. I have to say it's very poor because I can't remember the percentage, but definitely we have less women in parliament now, or even in the, we have to also not look at parliament, but assemblies, like, state assemblies. But leadership is also in corporate boards. Leadership should also be in the civil society. Are the men still, leading the human rights organizations? We have to ask these questions. I don't have the statistics, but the impression I get is that we have not turned a corner, because a lot of women were put on boards and then they were demoted. Now we have men on these boards. So I have not kept track of it, but generally women in leadership positions right now, it's poor, but yet we know and we have proven that they are very good as leaders too. I mean, I'm really glad the Chief Justice is a woman. So we have to keep reminding institutions, where are the women, right? And please don't, and when they say, oh, we're just waiting for the qualified women, are they qualified? We never ask that question of men, do we? I mean, like, why is it they assume that if it's a woman, we must question the qualifications? When it's men, we assume, oh, yeah, they're so good. But they've shown that they kind of like messed up the world, these male leaders.
I tried to do a trick earlier on. I tried to put two questions into one, but you answered before I could ask the second part. So here is the real last question. Now that you've covered female representation in Malaysia in terms of leadership roles, what change would you like to see?
I think I want more institutionalized change. I think we need to make it mandatory that whether it's parliament or state assemblies, even civil society must see that, okay, we have got like, let's say 100, I mean, we should also look at ourselves. Like we have 100 NGOs. So let's look at the leadership there. Let's look at the leadership there. Let's start with ourselves. Are they led by women or only primarily led by men? Is that co-leadership? Perhaps that should be co-leadership. So we need to institutionalize and make it mandatory that there must be at least 50% of women in leadership positions, not 30%, 50-50, get it right, because we make up half the world anyway. We make up half of Malaysia anyway. So I think we need to institutionalize it. But more than anything else, we need to stop we need to question the prejudice, because it's more like, oh, our role is, I mean, we still have women leaders saying, my most important role is being a wife and a mother, right? I really wish a man would say that. My most important role is being a father. Some women have to say it and then be a leader, right? Otherwise, you're seen as being, you failed your family. And it was Rafida Aziz who said that, how come we don't ask these questions of the men? She gets tired of being asked, how are you coping being a wife and a mother? She says, stop asking me that question. So those attitudinal changes, this is my passion, changing attitudes. Because
I think
that
is something that has been going on for so long, because you mentioned Rafida Aziz. Probably the new generation have no idea who she is. But this question was asked of the Ardern, the New Zealand former Prime Minister. So that was like just a couple of same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And also to check ourselves, right? Like I said, it goes back to, yeah, she's doing very well. She's the head of a bank and all that. But has she got a man? Yeah. Or is she a good mother? Or is she a good wife? Or saying, you know what, she's amazing. She does this, and she's also knows how to make a roast chicken so beautifully, or makes the chicken rendang so fantastically. Stop it, guys. Stop giving ourselves this, this responsibility, this like we have to be perfect, right? So check sexism. I think everyday sexism is an issue, and we need to very firmly not necessarily gently, but with good humor, put a stamp on that, the sexism. And
I think
building
in our conversation before this, you mentioned a caption that you really liked, which was, "It's not sexy, it's sexist."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right, absolutely. I mean, seriously, I mean, even yesterday I was at having dinner, and the man was telling his partner to say, no, you keep quiet, let me tell the story. You know, if she tells the story, you'll be confused. I'm going like, we all at the table going, my God, what on earth are you doing? This shouldn't be happening in this day and age. Stop mansplaining. But we all, broke into laughter at the same time. We're very firm. And we're talking about a contemporary of, he's my contemporary. He will be the first person to say, yes, I'm a feminist. And yet, look how naturally he said, no, I'll tell the story. My wife, if she tells a story, it'll take a long time. Jeez, how terrible is that? Everybody at the table went, what are you saying? So we have to be very vigilant, Isma. We have to be very vigilant and say, hey, stop it. Stop this sexism. Right?
All right, let's end with that. Thank you so much, Ivy. I think you've really inspired me and everybody else who's listening in terms of feminism, getting deeper into the intricacies of female in leadership, because it's not that simple, right? Society has made it very complicated for us, unfortunately. But thanks to people like you, who's not afraid to go.
Thank you. And Women's Aid Organization, all of the members. Yes, it's not it's a we. Yes.
Yes, definitely. So we can still fight for what is ours. And I remember what you said about we should not be grateful for what is ours in the first place, right? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes. What's next? It should be like, what's next? What else you have to give me, right? Yeah. Yeah, I hate this gratitude thing, I mean, we respect and say, yeah, thank goodness. But don't make us feel that, hey, I mean, so good, I'm giving you this. You're not giving me, it was always there. We're taking back what was always there, our right and rights.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, again, thank you so much for your time, Ivy. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me this space to go on and on. Hopefully I made some sense. Yeah. Bye, WAO members, whoever's out there. I don't know who's out there, but bye.
Bye. Take care.
Take care. Bye. Talk soon.